Okay, so I will get started. As I mentioned, I guess before the recording came on, I am going to leave those mics open. So if any of you are watching this video after the fact, if you hear some people in the background, those are the students. And we're going to try and keep this a little more informal tonight if we can, so with a smaller group. And of course, tonight's course is how to run dual tournaments using electronic bouts. The term electronic bouts we use to signify that you're not going to be using paper bout sheets and you're going to have a computer at each mat. And that's whether or not you're running a dual tournament, an individual tournament. That terminology will be the same across track wrestling. So there is some confusion, and certain times some people think that that's track wrestling score clocks and things like that. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. So the term electronic bouts is just kind of a general term for us to say you have a computer at each mat, you're not going to print bout sheets, and you're going to use computers to score all those bouts. And so a lot of the things too, so if any of you, and I know at least one, maybe a couple of night, we're in the course the other night with individual tournaments, you're going to notice a lot of similar techniques and similar steps that you're going to be doing. But there are some slight differences, so we're going to cover those tonight. I will note this, that if you run an individual tournament electronically and you've had success there and you're feeling comfortable there, you're going to do great with dual tournaments. They run pretty easily and efficiently, and again, a great way to run and make dual tournaments operate very well. So I'm using this dual tournaments 101 tournament that we worked in some other classes here at Track Wrestling. And there's a couple things we need to do, and this will be similar to in individual tournaments. But I first of all want to go into Setup, and I'm going to go down to Settings, and I want to make sure that this setting right here for Use Electronic Bouts is set to Yes. If that's not, I would just flip it, of course. And what that will do is that will update. It'll do a couple of things. It'll add a few new items to your menus, but it'll also update your to-do list. And you'll notice that if I come over here now, I see these items, this one here in particular, number 11, that's going to help you get set up. And then there's going to be a couple of others down here. So there are a few extra steps and different steps for that matter that you're going to have to do if you're running electronically. So going to Settings is your first step. The other item we want to make sure that we have set to Yes here is this one that's called Use Mats. And so if I come here and I do flip Use Mats to Yes, I want to make sure that I have that on as well. I forgot to do one thing here. Okay, there you go. Hopefully when I add this little this little pointer here, that it helps you guys keep track of my mouse. So I forgot to do that before we started up. But anyway, from the settings page, use electronic bouts to Yes, and use mats. Both of those get set to Yes. And then what I want to do is I want to come into my mats page, and I can get there a lot of places, but because I'm setting up my tournament currently, I'm going to come into the setup menu and I'll click on mats there. And oftentimes if you're running on paper, whether it's a dual or individual tournament, you may not come to this page to add mats. You'll need to if you're running electronically. In dual tournaments, you'll need to do this as well. And so I have my chart created, and I guess just to maybe give you a little background on the tournament here, I do have one chart created. And if I come in the Teams page and I click on the chart, you'll notice that this tournament is a pretty basic dual tournament. 6 teams. If I look at this chart, I can click here on the red link for the chart. And if I view this bracket, this isn't necessarily really important for our sake tonight, but I just want to give you an idea of the type of tournament that we're running. It's a 6-team round robin, pretty common Saturday mid-season high school dual tournament. So that's just a little background on the tournament we're running. But anyway, we come into settings and we go to the mats page. And what we want to do is we want to assign add our mats, and then I want to tell the system which duals are going to be wrestling on which mats. And actually, and I think I closed that, and I did, I'm going to open that bracket back up and just give you a little layout of how we're going to run this tournament. So you probably have kind of mat assignments that you're going to be using. And so in this tournament, we have round 1 with 3 duels, round 2 with 3 duels, round 3 with 3 duels, and we're just going to specify where those are going to be wrestling. So in my case, I'm going to say that, and let's say this is my home team, this Wisconsin Rapids team. I want them on mat 1 all day. So I'm going to put bouts 1, 4, 7, 10, and 13 on mat 1. And just to make it really simple, I'll put these on mat 2 and I'll put these on mat 3. You don't have to do it that way. You could mix them up however you wanted. But just referring back to our bracket, you can see where we're getting this information from. This would be just like a bout number in an individual tournament. It's just a match number when you're talking dual tournaments. So I'll keep that open just in case we need to get to it. But finally, I think for the third time, I'm back to the mats page, and I click this Add Mats button. So I'm going to pick my mat here, so I could pick any mat. You know, there's tons of them there, but I'm going to use mat 1. And in my case, I'm just running 3 mats in mine. I don't want to use a prelim bout string because I don't have any prelims, but if I did, I could add them there. And then my bout string here, I'm going to refer back to what I had on my chart, and I'm going to put bout 1 on mat 1, and I'll put a comma and no spaces. I also want 4, I want 7, comma, I want 10, and I want 13. So I'm really just specifying that bouts 1, 4, 7, 10, and 13 are going to go to mat 1. And I add that. And you'll see that that gets added. This is important. Without doing this step, you won't have your dashboard functioning in a dual tournament. Our system needs to know what mat each dual is going to, and this is the step that gets you there. So I'm going to do the same thing for mat 2. So I just come to add mat. I'm going to select mat 2, skip the prelim bout string, and then on mat 2, I'm going to go bouts 2, 5, 8, 11, and 14. And so I just add those in there again, comma separated, right down the line. And then I'm also going to, of course, add mat 3 here. And then I'm going to go 3, 6, 9, 12, and 15. And again, I'm using this as an example just because it's really simple. You could mix these up however you wanted. And the one thing that I do, and this is more of a tip than anything, just to make sure that you have all of your duals included, I always just read down this list. So I have 1, 2, 3, there's my round 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And that kind of saves to make sure that you have this right, both in theory and that you also didn't mistype something or miskey something. So that's a good idea just to double check that. What I can do to also kind of check that, if I go to operating and I go to bout schedule, and this will be similar to, somewhat similar to dual or individual tournaments, you'll see that here are my schedules. So this is round 1, and here are my bouts, and it's going to show my mat number. Here's round 2, my bouts, and 3, 4, and 5, and so on. So that's kind of where you come. You'll also note that later when we get here, this will turn green. It'll use the colors that we have in our individual bout schedule as well. And then the final step that we need to do to kind of get set up for our tournament, and again, these are some pretty quick, simple steps. It's quite honestly taking me longer to walk you through it than it will for your own tournament, which is, I think, a good thing. I'm going to come into the setup menu. I'm going to go to users, and I want to add a worker. And this is required anytime you run electronic bouts. We need you to add a worker password. So just click that add worker. A lot of times you may not even have workers. You might just have people logging as admins. However you're handling that is just fine. You could add a different worker for each mat. You could also add one worker and they would share that, and they're going to specify what mat they're logging into. And in my case, I'm just going to add a worker called worker. And then I'm going to make it really simple for logging in. I'm going to type worker. And then for my password, I'm going to go password. I am going to use this to log in later, and that's just going to help me after, at the end of the day, I'm making sure I remember what it is. So I have my worker password added, or my worker login, excuse me, username worker, and my password is password. So that's pretty simple. Again, you could have mat 1, 2, 3 here. You could use, school mascots, whatever the situation might be. You just add your workers however you need to do that. So at this point, we're pretty much set up in our tournament. We have our bracket created. I've assigned those bouts to mats, and now I can go in and start my tournament. So I'm just going to come back. I'm going to come to the home page, and so this is actually on the testing site, you'll notice. But I'm going to log in as if I'm one of those workers. Okay, and if I have 3 mats, there's going to be 3 of these out there, and of course I'll just show one tonight. But all they're going to do is come to the Track Wrestling home page. Again, not on testing, they would be on our live site. And then I would just search my tournament, and I'm in Dual Tournaments 101. In this case, I'm just going to sign in as a tournament worker, and here's my password. It was worker and password, and I can log in as a worker. And so I'm logged in, and you will notice in the worker, we haven't talked a lot about users in any of the courses, but not in depth anyway. You'll see that the workers have a much reduced set of menus here, so they can't do everything that you can as an admin. But what they can do is score bouts. So again, now I'm simulating that I'm one of your table workers, and I might be at mat 2 or whatever the case might be. So I'm logged in. I'm going to come to operating and click on electronic bouts. I'll select my wrestling style, and so in my case I'm folk style. If you were college, of course that would also include riding time. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just folk style, and I click open, and it opens this page right here. Now, all I'm going to do from here, and again, this is a new window that opens, and I'll make it just a touch bigger, I guess, so you can see that well. And now I'm going to come in, and I'm going to select my first duel, and you'll notice that the mat number is there. You'll also notice in a little while, I'll go through and simulate some of these matches being done, and you'll see that the ones are done turn green, and that way your mat will always know to go to the next one. So let's say that I'm on mat 2, and I'm going to score this Pewaukee and Brookfield East duel, and I just click on it, brings up this interface right here. I can select my starting weight. Let's say it's 45 for this one. Just going to reorder the bouts and put 145 up at the top. And then I'm waiting for my wrestlers. They show up for the match. I click on 145 and I just select my wrestlers. And they're going to be in the rosters from the tournament. And let's say this wrestler is a different wrestler. I can go in and change him however I want. I could pick a different wrestler. I believe in my case I only have my actual starters here. You would probably have more with larger rosters, and perhaps even less if it was a smaller team. But I just select my wrestlers there and I click save. And now it brings me to this page, and this is going to be familiar regardless of what kind of tournament you're running. This is our mat side controller interface, and this is how you're going to go ahead and score those bouts. So there's a couple of things that we can do right away here. Let's say that this is actually my green wrestler. I can use this drop down right here, and I can switch him to green, and that flips him. And then I'd just go ahead and get started with my match. So I could start the clock, and then that dashboard would start running. If green gets a takedown, I would click takedown for green. Maybe he gets a near fall, and they score, they get a reversal. And if they go out of bounds, I can just come here and click stop. I'll also note too that on your keyboard, the down arrow will start and stop it. And of course, you can't see me pushing that arrow, but you also notice that I'm not over here. I can start and stop that clock with the down arrow. Sometimes it's helpful for your workers, and I think it's a really good idea that if they start and stop with the down arrow, and then they can use the other hand on the mouse to score. If I need to move up or down seconds, I can use these ticks. This will actually take me back to the last time that I started or stopped the clock, and so it takes me back. It's kind of a revert button. And let's say that in our scenario that this reversal is actually supposed to be an escape. If I click on that, I get these options. So what I did was, if I come back here, this is kind of a running record. It's kind of your score sheet. And these are all of the items that I've clicked from any of these menus. Let's say this reversal was really supposed to be an escape. So I just click on it. I can change the entry, which I'm actually going to do. But I could also switch the color if that was really the other guy. He couldn't have gotten a reversal in that situation, but let's say you scored it for the wrong guy. You could put switch there. I could delete an entry, or all entries for that matter. I could insert something right above that, or I could cancel the operation. But in my case, I'm just going to change it. And I think we said that that was going to be an escape instead. So I flip that, changes it here in my tally sheet here, and it also changes my score as well. So when I get to the end of that period, I can just click next, and I move to the next period, and maybe red chooses top, and I start the clock, and then he maybe turns him and pins him. So anytime a match ends, actually before I get to the end of the match, if the referee or a coach comes over and they want to see kind of, I guess, a score sheet of sorts, I can always come over here in the left menu and click on Summary. And the summary will bring this up. So you could show that to them. They could come and look at this, and they would know that, okay, he got a near fall here, 7 seconds into the match. And then I go back and red chose top with choice 1 between first and second period. If I'm ever on a page here and I want to go back to my current match, I just click, of course, this match button. Comes back here. And again, we're going to say that this match ends. And we're going to say it's a pin, but it could be for a decision. It could be overtime. Regardless of what the outcome is, I'm always going to come over to result. So I click result. You can see that red is highlighted. The reason for that is we just ended the match with him on top. So our system's going to assume, seeing he was on top, that he got the pin. If it was something kind of crazy that happened, maybe it was a defensive pin or something, I could switch over to that guy. But the system, you're usually going to see the right wrestler selected there. You'll also notice that it's not just the wrestler with the most points. Again, this guy was on top, so that's how that was kind of calculated. I could change the win type here, and there's tons of them here. It actually scrolls down too. But again, this should be accurate. If I needed to make adjustments here, I could, and then I go ahead and I save that result. I'm always going to be brought back to this matches page, and I can also always get there from this matches link over here. So you'll see that the result of that match gets included. It'll show the team scores that were calculated for that match, and then at the bottom here it's going to show the actual team score, or the total team score. If I needed to adjust the team points, I could click here and I could add that. I'm not really going to need to do that, so I'm just going to click back on matches, but I could add that in there. And I also could, and this is brand new for those of you that haven't seen this, I can come in here, and this is an official signature. Some states or tournaments require an official to sign or make a note of some sort. I could click on here, and this would be where you would just put the initials, or maybe it could be an official number or something like that. So I could enter something here and enter that, and you'll see that that gets added. So at the end of the match, maybe he would come in, just type his initials or something like that. So that is kind of an electronic way to have that official sign off. You of course probably would do that at the end of the meet, but that is how you do it. So my next wrestlers come up. I click 152, which is my next bout. I could change my wrestlers here if I wanted to. I go save and continue, and I just go on through my match that way. A couple other items. If you want to run blood time, injury time, or recovery time, you certainly could right here. It's not required to do that. I will also note that it's really important that you use these next arrows to move from period to period. What happens sometimes is, let's say that red's, you're not using these next arrows and you're just selecting, kind of from here. A lot of times our system will get a little mixed up as to what you should be seeing in these menus. So I guess as another tip, if you're ever, let's say you have red on top and you're seeing maybe escape and reversal over here, it's probably because somebody went in and used this rather than the next button. So encourage your workers to always use these previous or next buttons to move through their periods, and you should be right on track there. So, and that's kind of the basics of that. What I'm going to do though, just to kind of show you this, is I'm going to load a match. So there's a match loaded on this this controller right here. And if I go back to matches, I just want to load one up on all three of our mats to show you the dashboard. And I think most of you have seen the dashboard, but I'll show you how it works in duels. If I go to mat 1, and it won't matter what starting weight, I would probably have the same starting weight. But now I just loaded these two wrestlers on mat 1. Again, back to matches, I can select a different duel from here. If I go to 3, I'm just going to load up a match here, save these guys. Now, if I'm back and I'm a viewer, I can go, back to Track Wrestling, and I'm just going to go from as a worker here. But if I go to the dashboard, this is what your viewers are going to see. They're going to see all three mats. These are actually the matches that I just loaded up. They're going to be seeing that dashboard. They can follow that at home. They can watch it on their phone. This will update in real time, close to real time anyway. Every 15 seconds, this updates. So your viewers at home are going to be able to watch your duel and your whole tournament right on their computers, right from, you'll see a lot of people right in the stands so they know which wrestlers are up and that sort of thing. So that's kind of the basics of scoring bouts and getting things going. There's a couple other items I want to touch on here, and again, I kind of mentioned early on that it's pretty straightforward, and I guess I won't say simple, but pretty simple to run tournaments when you're running electronically in dual tournaments. One other thing that you can use is what we call the match display. So you'll notice now that instead of as a worker, I came over to this other tab, and I'm now logged in as an administrator. So again, this would be you as the tournament director, where I have all of my items. And I want to talk about the match display, and what a match display is going to do is show the bouts that are wrestling on each mat. It's not as often used as, say, the mat assignment display in individual tournaments, but I do want to show you that this is here if you wanted to use it. And you can customize this much more than what we're going to go through tonight. But if I go to operating and I click on match display, so again, this is called a mat assignment display in individual tournaments, but it's in essence the same thing. So I'm just going to click match display, and I'll go ahead and make this a little bigger. Yours, of course, will be blank when you first get it into your tournament, but I went through and I added a few things here. So I added the mat name, I added the weight, a little information about wrestler 1, the record, and also the same information about wrestler 2. So real quickly, if I just come down here based on the settings, to change these, of course, you just use the drop downs, and there's all kinds of information that you can put in here. I also, before I get going too far, I'm going to display a certain number of characters, and I don't want to put too big of a number here. I don't want my columns to be so wide. I really only want them as wide as the number of characters I need. So, maybe you just want first initial. There should be enough room here for me to do this, but once you get in here and look at it, if you see that something doesn't look quite right, feel free to come back and make those adjustments. And I'll touch on a couple of other things here in just a minute. But just to see this display, I click View Display. You're going to get this again, this message that tells you that you can't display current score and time of matches unless you're running on a local server. So those of you that do run on local servers, if you have an interest in knowing more about that, we can let you know how to do that. But this is what you could display. So you could project this on the wall just like you do your mat assignment display. You could put it up on a Jumbotron or something like that. And there's lots of edits you can make from here. But basically, this is telling people on mat 1, here are the 2 wrestlers, there are the records, and you can add that information there too. And so again, you can, having an on-deck wrestler here probably, actually it won't work. It doesn't make a lot of sense only because you don't really know who's up in the next match because, coaches move guys around and things like that in duels. But again, this is here for you to use. If you use the mat assignment display, this will be a breeze for you. If not, you can go back and play around with it. You'll also notice that I have this announcements area down here. I'm going to right-click on my screen and then hit back. So any way that you get back is a good way to come back here so you don't have to reload it all the time. But I can also put this announcements thing in here. So I'm scrolling 3 announcements. I don't even think I have 3 in here yet. And then I've just changed the alignment a little bit to move it down the screen. And then I can change the font and things like that. But when I view that display, that's where this bar kind of comes in. And I put it at 400 pixels, so I kind of just moved it down the screen. I could have it right up at the top if I wanted to. I could have it at the bottom down there. And the way that you get those announcements in there is the same as in individual tournaments. Again, I'm back in here as as an administrator. If I come into the setup menu and click announcements, I would just add these in here right here. So if I wanted a third one, I would just click this. I would add that announcement, and then that would get cycled through in that announcements page. So one other thing too that I want to point out, and this is something that comes up pretty frequently, if I can find my display here, a lot of stuff open there. Sometimes you're not going to see what you want here, and let's say you have bouts loaded and you're not seeing the actual bouts. This item right here called test displays, this would allow you to kind of get maybe an example. It's going to feed some like dummy characters and data, names and things in there. If you didn't have bouts created in here and matches loaded, you wouldn't see anything on your display. So this item right here that says, if you flip this to yes for test displays and you go here, it's just going to give you a basic layout. These of course aren't my actual wrestlers. Really makes, it's really nothing to do with my tournament other than it grabs the teams and things like that. But this will at least show you what your layout's going to be. So if you ever see something like this and you kind of were wondering why it's there, I'm just going to go back. Just flip this test displays to no. Now when I load that up, it's my actual data. So that comes up often. As a matter of fact, we had it come up today, and just wanted to point that out to make sure everybody knows that that's there. So in terms of tournament management from a dual meet standpoint, it's basically for you as the administrator, making sure your workers are entering data correctly, keeping an eye on them, making sure they know how to run the mat side controller, and then just making bracket updates if they're needed, or changing scores or winners, things like that. And all I have to do that is I can come in any of these menus, but from the Teams page you can usually get to most things you need. I'm just going to click on the Teams page. I'm also going to click on my bracket, and if I view my bracket, I can open up any of these bouts. And there's a couple ways to get there, and I'll show you another way in just a minute. But this is a way I can get here if I wanted to, if I had to change this score, for instance. Let's say there wasn't even a score there. Let me go. This is the one I had. I'm clicking select about there. This is the one where I had a score. So let's say that pin time was wrong. I can click on that bout. I could change this. Maybe it was 2 minutes and 24 seconds. And I can save that, and then that'll update here. So I can make bracket changes from there. That's really pretty simple to do. Can also get there from this bout entry page. It's going to bring me to that same page. It's actually a little quicker to get to. So the bout entry in the operating is an easy way for you to kind of work from. And then again, you can select different, the different duels in here and go from there. So you can adjust team points from this page as well. And as a tournament director, that's really what you're doing, is just kind of keeping an eye on things, making updates, making sure that everything runs pretty smoothly. So I mentioned right from the start that this is a pretty straightforward process. Hopefully, you got a good overall understanding of it there. At this point, I guess I'm going to open it back up. We have a smaller group, and I'm happy to stick around for questions. If those of you that have your questions answered need to get going, that's just fine too. But now would be a good time to ask questions.
Yeah, it's pretty similar to the regular tournament.
Yeah, so yeah, the main steps are going to be pretty similar to individual tournaments, and I kind of led with this too. But if you've ever run an individual tournament electronically, I wouldn't have any hesitation in running a dual tournament. It's pretty straightforward. You get things going, and once you get those dual tournaments going, I mean, they kind of just take care of themselves. And you, as an administrator, you're just monitoring and making sure you got everybody entering bouts right and things like that. So yep, pretty similar.
I know at the end of the individual meets, we have to go in and finalize or do something. We have to do that same thing here.
Are you talking about? Yeah. Are you referring to signing off on the teams?
Yeah.
And making sure they're matched? Yeah, and we actually won't see that here on the testing site, just because we're not linked to anything. But yeah, the same thing would be true, and actually that's true regardless of whether you're running electronically or not. But I think what you're referring to is you have this team that you typed in, and then you're going to see this season team over here, and you've matched one to the other. You'll have that link that says click here to sign off on the teams, and you will in fact have to go ahead and sign off on the teams, and then also the participants as well. That process is the same and necessary regardless of whether you run electronically or not.
All right.
Yeah, and again, I can't really show you right here only because the testing site doesn't really function like that at all. So, but you would go here, teams, you'd match those up, and then on the wrestlers page, you would come in here as well, and then there would be this, yeah, we don't have it there, but there would be the spot where you'd sign off on the wrestlers as well. Any other?
I have a question. This is Tommy.
Sure. Hey, Tommy.
On the controller, when
Yep.
you set injury time, how do you get it off of there?
On the controller, when you set injury
So
time?
injury starts, yeah, injury time runs.
So if I start the injury time and run it?
Yep, and then it stops, whatever, and then you want to get back to...
Oh,
you just
yeah.
go ahead and start scoring again right away?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So anytime you click on a clock, and the same would be the case for blood time if I were, running this, or even if I didn't run it. Any clock that you click on is going to kind of get larger, and that's the one that, you have your focus on. If I wanted to come back, if I just click set, it's going to bring that one back up.
Okay.
The same is true. So let's say I was back in our case on injury time and I started that. It kind of brings it up, obviously, because that's where you want your attention at that time. But if injury time ends, if I come back here and I'm not sure how to make this one bigger again, if I hit start, it's also going to enlarge for me too.
Okay.
Yep. So you can either click, you can either click one of these sets to bring it large, or you can just click the start or stop to go ahead and enlarge it.
Okay, because we ran into that, and it just happened to be the end of the period, so we could get out of it anyways. But
yeah, yep. No, that's a good question. So any of the buttons you click, so either start, stop, or the set button is usually the best. So I can kind of scroll through any of these by using the set, and it just kind of brings the focus to whatever clock that I want to be on.
All right. Thanks.
Yep. Good question. Yeah, you're welcome. Anybody else? Questions?
What if you had to bring a match back up? In other words, you put it into the results too soon or anything like that? Is it the same as like an individual?
Sure. Oh, from like from me as a worker now, are you referring?
Yeah. If
Sure.
you're a table worker there, you're scoring it, and you hit the results too soon, and you saved it, and it needs to come back up.
Yeah. So let's just kind of simulate that. So I picked this winner by mistake, maybe, or whatever. I picked Morgan right here. I can just come, if I click back on this bout, or any bout for that matter, it'll open it back up. You're actually going to get this little warning that says, caution, you're loading a match that has already been completed. And I think the reason for that warning is obvious, just to make sure they don't, misfire and click on the wrong one. But in our case, this is exactly what we want to do. We want to open a match back up that's already been completed. But I just basically go through the process again. It would be the same guys, and it's going to tell me again, I'm loading a match that's been completed. That's fine. I didn't have any scores in here, but you'd see them, and then I could maybe just go, okay, I'm in the third period, and I go back there, and I can start from there. And I could go ahead, and maybe I knew that there was supposed to be, I can highlight these. Maybe there's supposed to be, 56 seconds left or something like that. And then, I forgot to hit set there, but I could just put the clock where I wanted it to and go from there. So, yep, it's from the matches. Just come back to matches, and you can get into any of these matches that you wanted to.
Okay, what do some of these settings over here on the left do? The like the athletes and configs and stuff like that. What does that do?
Okay. Actually, and I should probably show you a virtual clock too. We'll get there. So settings, the configs. Most of you are never going to need to work with this one, and I would probably just stay out of there sometimes. It's pretty rare that we have to have you in there, so I'll kind of skip that. That's probably more dangerous to show you anything there than anything. In the settings, this is where when you first land here, you're going to select the server that you're on. Obviously you'll be on 1, 2, or 3 when you're actually running your tournaments. If you had a clock, you'd be using this track wrestling clock. You'd be using this. You can change your style here. Separating riding time. Any of you that are doing college events, so there's 2 ways that riding time can be, I guess, started and stopped within our system. One is as soon as I click takedown for red, the riding time will start, and that would be not separated. The NCAA actually requires that that's done manually. So in that case, you would separate the riding time, and then you would have to click a separate button to get the riding time going. So that may or may not relate to any of you guys, but touchpad. So if you're on an iPad scoring, you would flip that to yes, go from there, and then display.
Oh, okay. So that's where you switch it over for an iPad use.
Yep, that's right. Yep. So you can you flip that to yes. Okay. In the settings. Yep, that's right. And then this display format, I can flip this to compact. So this where an iPad, you want to keep at normal because that's a large enough device. If you were scoring from like a mobile phone or something, and you can do that, and actually we've done it and tested it and everything. It's pretty small, but it definitely works. And sometimes in a pinch, you might have to if you have a computer go down or something. But if I click save, now you'll see that everything just kind of gets scrunched. And if I go to, if I come into my matches, you'll see that everything's just, the menu's a little bit different, things like that. But it's kind of hard. So it would really actually be something more like this that you'd be looking at, right? It'd be on your phone or something like that. So I'm going to set that back and show you the rest of the settings. I'm going to go back to normal, and then it comes back to what we're used to seeing here. And events, this is how you would, this is probably how your people are, this is more for when you're logging in when you're using Track Wrestling clocks. So your workers are going to log into the tournament as a worker. Remember how we did this? We came to they logged in this way. But that's where you could, that's more related to clocks. I can find my right one. Here we go. Events, I'm sorry, matches. Again, that's our list of matches. Athletes, this is just going to be the athletes that are coming up in the in that current match. Yep. Match is how we get back to whatever match we were last scoring. Kind of takes us to that last point that we were. Result we've covered. The summary we covered. Again, that's kind of the running list or your, I guess, bout sheet in some ways. The history. The history is going to go back and show you past results. And not always. Usually the only time you need to come back here is if there's something that you have an internet loss or something in your building and we need to get you back to kind of bring some stuff back. But again, that's kind of a history of matches that were on this particular device. The chat. Actually, I skipped over this and I probably shouldn't have. This doesn't come up so much. This chat probably isn't used nearly as often in dual tournaments as it is in individual tournaments, but it functions the same way. So if I'm in a mat, and the common thing that you would do here is you'd call a wrestler to a mat, but in a dual tournament that's maybe not. Maybe you need, we need, I don't know, water. These guys, yeah, maybe you need a trainer, exactly. I'm getting a little thirsty, so I'm going to say water, just to because that's what I want right now. But if I click send, this is going to get sent to the head table. So I can come so now I'm back. I'm my head table worker. I'm you guys, and I'm just kind of running my tournament. I would have this online chat function open that I find over in the left menu. And then I'm going to open a line of chat with my table workers. And then now you'll see that here's my need water. And again, it's a little hard to see because I got the testing in the background. And then
You're saying you're at the head table, and you normally don't have the chat line open, or how do you do that? Keep that active?
I would. Yeah, I would at the head table. Again, in dual tournaments, probably not as I won't say important, but probably not as used in dual tournaments. Individual tournaments, of course, this is used all the time because you've got however many bouts running and kids are missing and you're calling wrestlers to mats and things like that. In this case, definitely worthy. I mean, there's good or worthwhile, I should say. There's lots of applications for it.
You leave one laptop at the head table open for chat.
Yeah, and what I might
split a screen. One of the
exactly. Yep, this is probably what I would do right here. Is I would probably take this chat, and maybe resize it so I just kind of have it open at the bottom or something. Maybe one computer just has that chat open. Maybe the other one is kind of operating on this page, maybe the bout schedule or something. But yep, so I definitely have that open. And then if I needed to reply back, I would just say coming soon or something like that. I could send it to one mat, or I could send it to all the mats. I can't remember what mat I sent it from there. Is it 3?
2.
Mat 3. So it came from mat 3. Yep. And then I select 3. And I could send that. And then if I am now back at my table, or my table worker, if I refresh this, now you see that the head table said, yep, coming soon. So they know that you've been in contact. So that's the chat function. Again, definitely something you can use, much more prevalent to see that in individual tournaments, but definitely there.
So when you're at the score table, you have to go back to chat to see the results, or I'm at the table scoring.
Yep.
When would I see the chat coming back from the head table?
Oh, that pops in. There's a little. You'll see a little. You'll see a little message. I'm not sure how to simulate that with both of them here. But when they're at this page, well, they see it right here, and then they'll see that click in. So it's kind of a running here. And so when that gets sent, that will refresh right here. So when they come back in between matches, they'll see it right here.
Okay, so but they wouldn't see it during the match.
They do not. I believe they don't.
Okay.
I believe there's nothing here that would indicate that that there's a chat that came in. So, and the idea probably would be to make sure that they're paying attention.
Right.
Not worried as much about the water.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, chatting all the time. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, that becomes dangerous at times. I've seen that happen too, where it just becomes kind of a way to talk to one another. So it wasn't how it was designed, but our society is definitely changing in that regard. So. And then a couple other things here. So we went through chat. The help menu, of course, is just going to bring up, it's kind of a document that shows a lot of those items that you might need, to do from here. And then the virtual, the com right here, you guys will never need to use this either. I'm kind of going to skip over that. That's again more local server related. And that's very seldom that we even have to really get into that sort of stuff. But the virtual clock, and this is something that I probably should have started, showed you a little while ago. I'm gonna load up a match. If I go to matches, I'm just gonna load up these guys, and then I think I'll start the clock just so we can see this, and then I'll give somebody a takedown. But this is a situation where I could use the virtual clock to open a window and then extend this desktop and drag it over to that new window. So I might, at my table, have a monitor or an LCD screen or something like that set up where I could display the score for the wrestlers, coaches, fans, that sort of thing. So if I click on virtual, again, you'll notice that this is going. I click on virtual. There are several different templates here, and if you leave folk style, that's kind of our basic, our original one, and I just hit open clock, it's going to open this window, and I can resize this like this. Oh, I slid it over to my other monitor, which you guys can't see. But it'll show the period, or the clock runs, shows the period and the score. And what I would do then is I would take this and then I would extend my desktop and slide it over to the other monitor that I have. I can also, I need to close that actually. If I go back to my controller, this other one, this folk style, all right, you can play around. You can mess with these on the testing site anytime. But if I go to this one, it's a folk style RI USAW. It's just a different and it kind of shows you. So it's on black background. That's more of the FILA international type that we had requests for. But it also shows the team score here. This one's not really made for team score, but it shows team score and things like that. So that's the virtual clock. So you guys can use that as well. But that was the last item here in that to-do list. So I'm going to come in here and go to match, and I'll stop that clock right now. And that's the virtual clock. So I think that covers all those left menu items there too. Oh, yeah, you bet. You bet. The testing site's a great place, guys, to play around with this stuff. So just, create a few duels, score some matches, click around on those things. And if you're on the testing site, there's really no harm you can do. If you mess it up bad enough, just copy your tournament over again, and it goes right over the top of your whatever's on your testing site. So great place to play around. Other questions? Okay. Well, if not, we'll probably wrap that up here for the evening. If you do have questions, again, I'm happy to stick around. As usual, I'll get this video loaded up in probably tomorrow morning, first thing. You should get an email, but you can always go back to that Track Wrestling University page, click on a course, and you can see those videos there as well. So you should have an email tomorrow, sometime mid-morning, and with that link to it too. So,
thank you, Shane.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Have a great night. And if you guys are all done, then yeah, you're welcome.